Canterlot Wedding Redux by Hoof and Quill. Princess Celestia sat pleasantly in her private study, sipping hot tea after the menial effort of raising the morning sun. Princess Luna sat next to her sister, somewhat less chipper, but none the less determined to spend at least morning tea with her older sister, despite their opposing schedules. Both sisters smiled at the novelty of a letter arriving by magic transport, popping into existence right in front of Princess Celestia. Rare were the ponies daring enough to send one directly to Princess Celestia, after all, and since it wasn't through Dragonfire, but rather standard magic post, it couldn't even be young Princess Twilight Sparkle. Luna took time to sip at her tea as Princess Celestia unfurled the small scroll and set to reading. Princess Celestia had been in full control of her horn and magic for nearly 2,000 years now. The awkward adolescence full of magical mishaps and strangely short and long days were long over in the land of Equestria. Luna felt completely justified, then, in feeling both mild amusement and also startling worry over seeing her sister's age-old teacup shatter in a shower of golden sparks. Before Princess Luna could comment, Princess Celestia barked out orders in her no-time-for-pleasantries authoritarian voice.
Captain Bulwark, deploy 2 extra squads to Prince Blueblood's mansion immediately. Find him and keep him there.
Your Highness. The guard outside galloped off in immediate reaction to her orders. Luna didn't have to actually pose a question, only raising an eyebrow. Princess Celestia sighed and set the scroll down on the table, away from her spilled tea.
Prince Blueblood has announced a wedding.
Your insufferable nephew? What mare would tolerate him?
Princess Celestia's brow knit in an expression that sent chills down Princess Luna's spine.
I doubt she knows yet. He likely just assumes any mare would agree to marriage.
Ponyville was enjoying a lovely spring morning, the kind of morning that made every citizen just happy to be alive. Fluttershy, in particular, was in high spirits, trotting about as she fed her animal friends. A caretaker like Fluttershy had to be an early riser by necessity, and she had been awake long enough to have disposed of any morning grogginess or doldrums. A letter popping out of nowhere right in front of her nose, however, was more than just a little startling, causing the skittish Pegasus to jump back and let out a foolish squeak. A moment of hesitation later, however, she opened the scroll and pressed it to the warm grass as she read over the fancy calligraphy.
You are cordially invited to the wedding. Oh, a wedding! Oh, wonderful! Of Prince Blueblood of Canterlot and... Oh my!
Fluttershy rolled the scroll back up with her nose and carried it into her house. This was going to be a strange day indeed. Applejack was also an early riser, by reason of always having a lot of work to do. It was dead in the middle of Applebuck season, after all, and there was a lot of orchard to cover, even if Apple Bloom managed to help out more than she slowed things down this year. Applejack wasn't above feeling sore after a few days of this, though, and was pleasantly surprised at the letter's arrival. She took a moment to stretch her hind legs, and then sat down on the ground and unfolded the scroll. Applejack's eyes scanned left and right as she went through the text. She chuckled lightly and shook her head. She stuffed the scroll up under her hat and called out to her brother.
Macintosh, I've got to go handle some Canterlot business. I'll be back before you can know it.
Applejack didn't even wait for the confirmation, "Yep," before trotting into Ponyville, specifically toward Carousel Boutique. Pinkie Pie, unlike most bakers, was rarely up terribly early. She'd only just managed to finish bathing and feeding her pet alligator before a tightly curled scroll popped out of nowhere in front of her nose. The letter fell downward until it was snapped out of the air by a toothless gummy. Pinkie giggled and took the edge of the scroll in her teeth, pulling it away from her pet.
No, Gummy, that's not for you.
She hopped over to her bed and unfurled the scroll on her bedsheets, quickly scanning the letter. Her face fell from her normal joyful cheer to a worried frown, and she plopped down on the floor, mopey and dreary.
Oh, Gummy, this is gonna be the least fun wedding party ever!
The letter for Rainbow Dash popped in just above her muzzle and fell down onto her face as she slept on her back in her bed. She opened her eyes and blearily batted the thing away. A moment later, though, some portion of her woke up, one that knew such things could be important, and she fished around beside her bed with a hoof until she found it. She laid back on her back again and opened the scroll above her.
Ugh, another wedding? There was one last year.
Rainbow's eyes widened. A moment later, the side of Rainbow's very professionally and skillfully crafted cloud home burst outwards as a sky-blue Pegasus flew at top speed into Ponyville. Rarity hummed happily to herself, despite having had no sleep the night before. She was on a hot streak. Creativity flowed like wine, and inspiration was around every stitch. The Crusaders were off at Scootaloo's house. Rarity had her home and business entirely to herself, with no distractions or irritations to interrupt her wonderful lucky break with her designs. Of course, this was the time when one should appear. The invitation popped into existence right above her ponykin, fell down and bounced off the back of the dress, and landed on the floor. Rarity paused a moment, considering whether to read the note or simply continue her work. But what pony would send something magical post if it wasn't quite urgent? Rarity lit her horn and lifted the scroll before her, commenting to her half-dozing pet cat as she did so.
Oh my, Opal, a royal crest! Do you suppose it's from Princess Celestia?
She unrolled the scroll and began reading.
Another wedding! How absolutely!
Rarity stopped and reread that line. Rarity dropped the scroll to the floor with a blank expression on her face. Her horn lit, and she quite calmly and resolutely lifted a pair of fabric shears from her workspace. She turned and walked deliberately toward the door out of her boutique. The door seemed to be stuck until she heard a voice from outside.
I ain't letting go of this door till you calm down, Rarity.
Princess Luna's curiosity got the better of her propriety, and she lifted the scroll in her magic. She watched Princess Celestia's expression for any hint of anger, but, finding none, proceeded to look over the text. It was in Prince Blueblood's admittedly remarkably neat and beautiful calligraphy. Princess Luna barely suppressed a snort of laughter, and for that was rewarded by the look of irritation she'd expected on her sister's face. Princess Luna set the scroll down on the table again.
So, dear sister, Prince Blueblood is marrying Princess Twilight Sparkle.
Princess Luna bit back any joking reply, and instead just stayed silent for a moment. She stood and smiled tightly to her sister.
I shall prepare the castle for the element's arrival.